Welcome, dear listeners, to another thrilling dive into the world of Hercule Poirot, where the little grey cells unravel the darkest secrets. I'm delighted you've joined us for The Deadly Confession, Poirot's Last Visitor, a tale of buried guilt, wartime shadows, and a confession that hides more than it reveals. Settle in, sharpen your wits, and let's embark on this mystery together. Justice awaits. Picture a stormy Brussels evening. A desperate man bursts into Hercule Poirot's apartment, confessing to a decades-old murder on foggy moors. But as Poirot digs deeper into forged wills, hidden poisons, and wartime betrayals, he uncovers a fresh killing disguised as fate. Can the master detective expose the true killer before the final curtain falls? Chapter 1. The Twilight Summons. The streets of Brussels gleamed under the amber wash of gas lamps as twilight surrendered to evening's embrace, the air thick with the scent of rain-slicked cobblestones and distant bakery ovens exhaling their final sighs of the day. Hercule Poirot, ensconced in his meticulously ordered apartment on the Rue Royale, adjusted the symmetry of his moustache in the gilt-framed mirror, his reflection a portrait of precision amid the velvet drapes and polished mahogany. Retirement had cloaked him in a veneer of tranquility, yet beneath it simmered the restless hum of his little grey cells, ever vigilant for the discord that disrupted life's perfect balance. A sharp rap at the door shattered the quiet, echoing like a misplaced note in a symphony. Poirot's valet, Georges, materialized from the shadows with the silent efficiency of a well-oiled mechanism. "Monsieur, a telegram has arrived. Urgent, from England." Poirot's eyes, sharp as obsidian, narrowed as he accepted the slip of paper. The words leaped forth in terse script. "Must see you at once. Matter of life and death. Arriving Brussels tonight. Reginald Voss." The name stirred echoes from decades past. A fleeting encounter at a London soirée, where Voss, then a dashing baronet, had boasted of estates and equine pursuits. What dire straits could propel such a man across the Channel now? No sooner had Poirot pondered this than another knock resounded, firmer, laced with desperation. Georges opened the door to reveal Sir Reginald Voss himself, a figure ravaged by time and torment. His once impeccable tailoring now hung loose on a gaunt frame, silver threading his dishevelled hair, and his eyes, haunted hollows ringed with shadows, darting as if pursued by phantoms. "Poirot, thank God you're in. I couldn't wait for a reply. Took the first ferry." Voss's voice cracked, a veneer of aristocratic poise fracturing under strain. He stepped inside, shedding his overcoat like a burdensome skin, revealing a rumpled shirt stained faintly with travel's grime. Poirot gestured to the armchairs by the hearth, where flames danced in merry defiance of the encroaching chill. "Sir Reginald, entrez, s'il vous plaît. Georges, the brandy, the Napoleon, if you will. Now, mon ami, compose yourself. What catastrophe brings you to Hercule Poirot's door at this hour?" Voss collapsed into the seat, his hands trembling as he accepted the snifter, the amber liquid swirling like captured sunlight. He took a fortifying sip, then met Poirot's gaze with the intensity of a man unburdening his soul. "It's a confession, Poirot. A murder, one I've carried like a stone in my chest for 20 years. I can bear it no longer. The guilt gnaws at me, day and night." Poirot leaned forward, his fingers steepled in that familiar pose of acute attention, the firelight glinting off his patent leather shoes. "Murder. Proceed, monsieur. Omit nothing. The truth, she's like a mosaic, each tile essential." Voss exhaled raggedly, his words tumbling forth in a torrent. It happened on the moors near my estate in Devon. A hunting party, myself, my brother Edmund, and a rival suitor, Captain Harlan Drake. Edmund was the golden son, heir to everything, while I scraped by on allowances. But I loved Amelia, the vicar's daughter, and Drake. He pursued her relentlessly, his war medals and charm eclipsing my prospects. The scene Voss painted unfolded in Poirot's mind. Fog-shrouded heather undulating under a leaden sky, the crack of shotguns punctuating the calls of distant grouse. We separated to flush the birds. I circled back, rifle in hand, and spotted Drake alone, his back turned. Jealousy surged. Amelia had confided his advances bordered on obsession. In that moment, I aimed not at game, but at him. One shot, muffled by the mist, and he crumpled. I staged it as a tragic misfire, my alibi a fabricated sighting of a poacher. The inquest ruled accident. Edmund inherited but died soon after in a riding mishap. The estate fell to me, yet peace eluded. Poirot's moustache quivered slightly, a telltale sign of his mental gears engaging. And why confess now after 2 decades? What phantom stirs this dormant guilt? Voss's knuckles whitened around the glass. Dreams, Poirot. Vivid nightmares of Drake's accusing eyes. And lately, anonymous letters arriving at the estate, scrawled with accusations. Murderer on the moor. Someone knows. Perhaps a witness I overlooked. I need your counsel. How to atone or evade the noose. As Voss spoke, Poirot's gaze drifted to the man's clenched fist, where a handkerchief protruded, a fine linen square monogrammed with intricate initials, not R.V., but E.D. Edmund Drake, no, Harlan Drake's brother. The discrepancy prickled like a misplaced puzzle piece. Poirot probed gently. This handkerchief, monsieur, it bears unfamiliar initials, a memento perhaps. Voss glanced down, startled, as if noticing it for the first time. Ah, this. Borrowed from my valet in haste. Mine was soiled. He tucked it away hastily, but Poirot noted the evasion, a ripple in the narrative's smooth surface. The conversation wove onward, Poirot extracting details with the finesse of a surgeon. The rifle's make, a vintage Purdy, now gathering dust in the armory. The moor's treacherous bogs that could swallow secrets, and Amelia's fate, married to a banker, vanished into London's fog. Voss's alibi hinged on a gamekeeper's testimony, long since deceased, and a pocket watch stopped at the fatal hour, allegedly from a fall. By the fire's dying embers, Voss rose, his shoulders lighter, as if the confession had exorcised a demon. You've listened, Poirot. That alone eases the burden. I'll return to England tomorrow, face whatever comes. He clasped Poirot's hand, then departed into the night, his footsteps fading down the stairwell. Alone, Poirot paced the room, the telegram crumpled in his palm. The confession rang with authenticity, yet inconsistencies nagged. The handkerchief's monogram, a potential link to the victim. The anonymous letters, timed suspiciously with Voss's visit, and the brother's convenient death, paving Voss's path to fortune. Was this a genuine unburdening, or a clever ploy to gauge Poirot's suspicions? Georges reappeared, bearing a tray of herbal tisane. Will monsieur pursue this matter? Poirot nodded, his eyes alight with the thrill of the hunt. Oui, Georges. The little grey cells, they are aroused. Tomorrow we journey to England. The moors hold more than mist and memory. Dawn broke as Poirot prepared, packing his valise with essentials, a magnifying glass for overlooked traces, notepads for meticulous diagrams, and a volume of Shakespeare. For the bard often illuminated, the human heart's darker corners. The train to Calais awaited, its whistle a siren call to unravel the threads Voss had unwittingly spun. En route, Poirot reviewed the facts in his compartment, the landscape blurring past like half-remembered dreams. Voss's tale evoked classic motifs, fratricide veiled as mishap, echoes of Cain. But the handkerchief, a search of his mental archives recalled a similar case in Paris, where a borrowed item betrayed a thief's identity. Could Voss have pilfered it from a relative, or was it a deliberate plant? Arriving at Dover, the sea's salty tang invigorated him as he boarded the connecting train to Devon. The countryside unfolded in patchwork quilts of green, hedgerows stitching fields where sheep grazed obliviously. Voss's estate, Blackmore Hall, perched on a windswept hill, its granite facade brooding under scudding clouds, a sentinel guarding secrets. A carriage awaited at the station, dispatched by Voss, who greeted Poirot at the hall's oaken doors. "You've come, splendid, though I hoped my confession would suffice." Poirot inclined his head. "Hercule Poirot does not leave puzzles half-solved, monsieur. Show me the moor. Let us reconstruct." They ventured out, the wind whipping cloaks like accusatory fingers. The moor stretched vast and unforgiving, purple heather swaying in hypnotic waves, bogs lurking like traps for the unwary. Voss pointed to the spot, a shallow dip where Drake had fallen, now overgrown with bracken. "Here," he stood, rifle raised. "I fired from that ridge." Poirot knelt, his cane probing the earth, unearthing nothing but damp soil. Yet nearby a weathered stone marker caught his eye, engraved faintly with HD 1905, the year of the incident. A memorial? Unusual for an accident. Voss shrugged. Family tradition. Honor the fallen. As dusk encroached, they returned to the hall, where tea awaited in the library, shelves groaning with leather-bound tomes. Poirot's fingers trailed the spines, pausing at a volume on toxicology, dog-eared at pages on rare poisons. Interesting reading, no? Voss paled slightly. A hobby, estate management, involves vermin control. The evening deepened with shared anecdotes, Voss regaling Poirot with tales of pre-war grandeur, but the detective's mind catalogued anomalies. A locked drawer in the desk, rattling faintly, a portrait of Edmund, eyes eerily similar to Voss's, and the servant's hesitant service, as if eavesdropping. Retiring to his guest chamber, Poirot gazed from the window at the moonlit moor, a silvered expanse whispering invitations. The handkerchief's mystery resolved momentarily. It matched initials from a society register Poirot recalled, belonging to Harlan Drake himself, perhaps kept as a trophy. But this closure only ignited fresh inquiries. Why carry it now? And those letters? Who penned them? Sleep came fitfully, dreams of fog-enshrouded figures dissolving into dawn's clarity. Poirot rose with purpose, ready to delve deeper, the summons twilight giving way to investigation's relentless light. Chapter 2. Echoes of the Past. The Devon countryside unfurled like a faded tapestry from the train window, patches of emerald fields stitched with stone walls and dotted with sheep that grazed under a sky heavy with impending rain. Hercule Poirot, impeccably attired in his woolen overcoat and Homburg hat, watched the landscape shift from urban sprawl to rural solitude, his mind a whirlwind of hypotheses. The journey from Brussels had been a symphony of clattering rails and contemplative silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of his notebook where he sketched timelines and motives in precise script. Voss's confession lingered like a half-dissolved fog, plausible on the surface, yet riddled with undercurrents that demanded excavation. Blackmore Hall emerged on the horizon as the carriage rattled up the gravel drive, its silhouette a Gothic sentinel against the brooding clouds. Towers flanked the central block, their slate roofs slick with moss, and ivy clawed at the facade like fingers from a forgotten grave. The air carried the earthy tang of damp soil and wild thyme, a stark contrast to Brussels' urban perfume. Poirot alighted, his cane tapping rhythmically on the stones, and was met by Voss at the threshold, the baronet's face a mask of reluctant hospitality. "Poirot, you've wasted no time. Come in. The chill bites deeper here than in the city." Voss ushered him through the arched doorway into a hall panelled in dark oak, where suits of armour stood sentinel and a massive chandelier dangled like a frozen cascade of crystal. The space echoed with the hollow grandeur of faded nobility, portraits of stern forebears gazing down with judgmental eyes. "Merci, Sir Reginald. Hercule Poirot appreciates the English welcome, though the weather, she conspires against comfort." Poirot removed his hat, his gaze sweeping the room for anomalies, a habit as ingrained as breathing. A side table bore a silver salver with calling cards, one edged in black, hinting at recent mourning. Voss led him to the drawing room, where a fire crackled in the grate, casting flickering shadows that danced across Persian rugs worn thin by generations. "I've assembled the family, as you requested. Discreetly, of course. Told them you're an old friend revisiting wartime tales." The door creaked open, admitting the Voss clan in a procession laced with unspoken tensions. First came Lady Voss, the scheming widow, Voss's sister-in-law, widowed by Edmund's untimely fall. Her gown of midnight silk whispered against the floor, and her eyes, sharp as tempered blades, appraised Poirot with a predator's calculation. "Monsieur Poirot, Reginald speaks highly of your eccentricities. Welcome to Blackmore." Beside her slouched the prodigal son, Julian Voss, a lanky youth in his late 20s, his dishevelled cravat and rumpled jacket speaking of nights lost to London's gaming hells. His gaze harboured a smouldering grudge, flickering toward his uncle with barely concealed venom. Another visitor. Father's ghost must be stirring the pot. Completing the trio was the loyal servant, Mrs. Hargrove, a stout woman with a cap perched atop iron-grey curls, her apron dusted with flour from some kitchen endeavour. She bobbed a curtsy, her hands twisting a dishcloth like a rosary. "Tea, sirs, freshly brewed, with scones from the oven." Poirot accepted a cup, the porcelain warm against his palms, and settled into a brocade armchair. "Ah, the English tea, a ritual of civilization. Now, mes amis, indulge an old man's nostalgia. Tell me of Blackmore in its heyday, before the Moors claimed their toll." Lady Voss perched on the settee, her posture rigid as a queen's. "Heyday? Before Edmund's accident, you mean? He was the lifeblood here, hunts, balls, the estate thriving under his hand. Reginald was always the shadow, flitting about with his schemes." Voss stiffened, but Poirot interjected smoothly. "Shadows often conceal treasures, madam. And you, young Julian, what memories linger for you?" Julian snorted, lounging against the mantel. "Memories of father promising the world, then snatching it away with his will. Left me a pittance while Uncle Reggie inherited the lot. Convenient, that riding mishap. Horse spooked by a phantom, they said. The air thickened, charged with old resentments. Mrs. Hargrove hovered, refilling cups with hands that trembled slightly. Poirot noted her hesitation, the way her eyes darted to Lady Voss before speaking. "Master Edmund was kind, sir, always a word for the staff. His death, it broke us all. Sipping his tea, Poirot steered the conversation with the subtlety of a maestro. And the will, such documents, they are the skeletons in the family closet, no? Forged affections, disputed legacies. Lady Voss's lips thinned. Edmund's will was ironclad, drawn up by London solicitors. Julian's grievances are born of extravagance, not injustice. Julian's face flushed. Ironclad. Ha! I found discrepancies. Clauses added in haste, signatures that waver like a drunkard's hand. Poirot's interest piqued. He requested to see the family archives. Voss acquiesced, leading him to the study, a chamber lined with leather-bound ledgers and yellowed correspondence, the air musty with the scent of aged paper. As Voss and the others dispersed, Poirot delved in, his fingers tracing spines until he unearthed the will, a parchment heavy with seals, dated mere weeks before Edmund's demise. The script flowed elegantly, bequeathing the estate to Reginald in Edmund's absence of direct heirs, Julian being a nephew, not son. But Poirot's magnifying glass revealed anomalies, ink inconsistencies, a clause absolving debts that seemed appended, the notary's stamp faintly smudged. Mon Dieu, he murmured. A forgery, subtle but present. Confronting Voss privately in the garden, where overgrown roses tangled in thorny embrace, Poirot laid out his findings. The will, it was altered, to your benefit perhaps. This absolves you of motive in Drake's death, as the inheritance came unexpectedly. Voss paled, leaning on a sundial etched with Latin mottos. Altered. Impossible. I knew nothing. Edmund confided in me before his ride, said he'd revised it for fairness. If forged, then by whom? The revelation rippled through the household like a stone in a pond. Gathered in the drawing room once more, Poirot presented the evidence. Side-by-side comparisons of signatures, the telltale bleed of fresh ink on old paper. Lady Voss's composure fractured. If forged, it explains the whispers. Edmund muttering about disinheritance. Julian, you're always prying in his study. Julian surged to his feet. Me? You'd pin this on a boy grieving his father. You benefited most, aunt, living here rent-free, dipping into the coffers. Accusations flew like daggers, but Poirot's voice cut through. Peace. The forgery resolves your feuds, for now. It suggests Edmund intended to cut Reginald out, perhaps suspecting foul play in Drake's demise. But with the will invalidated, the estate reverts to equitable division. A cathartic closure, non? Tears glistened in Mrs. Hargrove's eyes. Bless you, sir. Master Edmund would want harmony. As tempers cooled, embraces exchanged, and tentative plans for legal redress formed, the family dispersed with lighter hearts. Yet Poirot lingered in the study, his satisfaction fleeting. Climbing to the attic on a whim, drawn by a servant's offhand mention of stored relics, he navigated trunks shrouded in dust, the air stale and spiderwebbed. There, amid forgotten heirlooms, a glint caught his eye. A small glass vial tucked in a velvet pouch, its label faded but legible. Arsenic for vermin. The stopper bore fresh fingerprints, smudged but recent, and a residue clung to the rim, crystalline and ominous. Poirot's pulse quickened. This was no antique poison, but a modern menace, its presence shattering the illusion of resolved pasts. Descending with the vial concealed in his pocket, Poirot gazed at the moor from the window, where mist rolled in like accusatory ghosts. The forged will had mended familial rifts, but this discovery, a toxin poised for contemporary crimes, plunged him deeper into Blackmore's web. Who among the household harbored such venom? And how did it intertwine with Voss's deadly confession? The rain began, pattering against the panes like impatient fingers urging Poirot onward. Dinner loomed, a stage for further revelations, and his grey cells hummed with anticipation, the echoes of the past giving way to the perils of the present. Chapter 3. The veiled accusation rain assaulted Blackmore Hall with relentless fury, sheets of water cascading down the leaded windows like tears from a tormented sky, distorting the world outside into a watery abstraction. The estate groaned under the storm's assault, winds howling through chimneys like banshees lamenting lost souls. Inside, the dining room gleamed with contrived elegance, a long oak table draped in damask, silver candelabra flickering with beeswax tapers that cast elongated shadows across porcelain and crystal. Hercule Poirot, seated at the head as an honoured guest, surveyed the assembly with the keen eye of a conductor poised before an orchestra of discord. Sir Reginald Voss occupied the opposite end, his face a pallid mask under the candlelight, forks tinkling against plates with mechanical precision. To his right sat Lady Voss, her necklace of pearls a noose of opulence, her smiles sharp as the carving knife she wielded over the roast pheasant. Julian lounged to her side, his wine glass perpetually refilled, cheeks flushed with the vintage's false courage. Mrs. Hargrove bustled in the periphery, serving with the deference of one who knew every creak in the floorboards, her apron a shield against the room's brewing tempests. Poirot had orchestrated this gathering under the guise of a farewell supper before his return to Brussels, but his telegram to Voss had been laced with urgency. Imperative we dine en famille. Revelations await. The baronet had complied, unaware that Poirot's grey cells had already dissected the forged will's implications, weaving them into a broader tapestry of suspicion. The vial of arsenic from the attic pulsed in his pocket like a hidden heartbeat, its presence a silent accusation. Mon Dieu, what a storm! Poirot remarked, his voice slicing through the patter of rain. It reminds one of the tempests in the human soul, fierce, unpredictable, yet revealing when the lightning strikes. Lady Voss arched an eyebrow, slicing into her pheasant with surgical grace. Poetic, Monsieur Poirot. But in Devon, storms are mere inconveniences, unlike the scandals that wash up from London. Julian, darling, do pass the claret. Julian obliged, his paw generous, spilling a crimson drop that bloomed on the cloth like a wound. Scandals. You mean like father's will? Now that Poirot's exposed the forgery, perhaps we toast to redistributed fortunes. Uncle, your grip on Blackmore loosens by the hour. Voss's knife clattered against his plate, the sound echoing like a gavel. Mind your tongue, boy. The will's discrepancies are a mystery, not an indictment. Edmund trusted me. Why tamper? Poirot interjected, his moustache quivering with feigned innocence. Ah, trust. The fragile crystal of relationships. And yet, in my experience, forgeries bloom from seeds of desperation. Madame Hargrove, this pheasant is exquisite. You prepared it yourself? The servant paused mid-pour, her pitcher hovering like a judgment suspended. Aye, sir, shot fresh from the moors, seasoned with herbs from the garden, Master Edmund's favourite. The mention of Edmund hung in the air, a spectre at the feast. Lady Voss's fork paused. Edmund, always the paragon. If not for that wretched horse bolting, we'd not be dissecting his intentions over dinner. Julian leaned forward, eyes gleaming with wine-fueled audacity. Bolting, or spurred. Rumours whispered of sabotage, a burr under the saddle, perhaps, convenient for some. Voss surged halfway from his chair, veins throbbing at his temples. "You dare accuse? I grieved my brother deepest. And what of your gambling debts, Julian? Debts that vanished after his death. Motive enough for mischief." The room crackled with electric tension, rain lashing the panes as if applauding the drama. Poirot raised a placating hand. "Gentlemen, mesdames, let us not descend into chaos." Hercule Poirot detects the cadence of truth in speech, the flicker of falsehood in the gaze. "Sir Reginald, recount again the day of Captain Drake's demise. The timeline, if you please." Voss sank back, exhaling sharply. "As I confessed, the hunt began at dawn. We parted at 9, shots echoing by 10. I fired at 11, mistaking Drake for quarry. Returned to the hall by noon, alarm raised." Poirot nodded, but his eyes narrowed. "Précisément. And the hall's clock, that magnificent grandfather in the foyer, did it chime the hour upon your return?" "Aye, noon exactly." "Why?" A subtle smile played on Poirot's lips. "Because, mon ami, clocks are the metronomes of alibis. Madame Hargrove, you were in the kitchen then." The servant's face drained of colour, her hands clasping the serving tray like a lifeline. "Yes, sir. Preparing luncheon. Heard the chime, then the commotion." Lady Voss interposed, her voice silky with menace. "What's this about, Poirot? Probing servants now?" "Merely clarifying," Poirot replied. "For the chime, it is mechanical, non? Wound weakly." Mrs. Hargrove nodded hesitantly. "Every Sunday, sir. But that day, oh, mercy." The room stilled, all eyes on her. Julian pressed. "Out with it, Hargrove. You've been twitchy all evening." Tears welled in her eyes, spilling over like the rain outside. I tampered, sirs, not with the hunt, but with the books. Master Edmund discovered my skimming, small sums for my ailing sister. He confronted me that morning, threatened dismissal. In panic, I adjusted the ledgers, hid the evidence in his study. But when he died, the guilt consumed me. I confessed to no one, until now. Voss's jaw slackened. Embezzlement, you. But the will. Linked, perhaps, Poirot mused. Your devotion, madame, led you to protect the family or yourself. This explains the discrepancies in the accounts I noted in the archives. A subplot unravelled. Lady Voss rose, her chair scraping like accusation. "You thief!" Edmund stressed that day. "Your doing? It drove him to that fatal ride." Julian pounded the table. "And the will's forgery. Your hand in that too." Mrs. Hargrove sobbed, collapsing into a chair. "No, sir, only the ledgers. I swear on my sister's grave." The outburst catharted the room's pent fury. Voss's shock softened to pity. Lady Voss's indignation cooled to reluctant forgiveness. Julian's barbs dulled by the servant's tears. Apologies murmured, hands clasped in reconciliation. Hargrove's position secured with promises of restitution, the family's fractures mending in the storm's symphony. As dessert, a treacle tart glistening with syrup was served. Poirot excused himself briefly, slipping into the foyer. The grandfather clock loomed, its face solemn under the pendulum's swing. He examined the mechanism, a faint scratch on the winding key. Dust disturbed recently. Voss's timeline skewed. The chime at noon. But if the clock ran slow from tampering, a contradiction bloomed. Who wound it that fateful day? Returning, Poirot observed Voss excusing himself early, pleading fatigue. The baronet's footsteps echoed up the stairs, but Poirot's instincts prickled. As the party dispersed, rain slackening to a drizzle, he donned his overcoat and ventured into the night, shadows cloaking his pursuit. Voss's figure melted into the gloom, heading not to bed, but toward the estate's overgrown arboretum, lantern in hand. Poirot followed at a distance, his cane silent on the sodden path, heart pounding with the thrill of revelation. What nocturnal errand drew Voss into the storm's remnants? The veiled accusations had peeled a layer, but the core pulsed with deeper deceit, compelling Poirot onward through the dripping foliage. The Arboretum's glasshouse loomed, steamed windows glowing faintly. Voss entered, and Poirot crept closer, peering through a crack. Inside, Voss rummaged in a potting bench, extracting a leather-bound journal, pages fluttering like captured secrets. He scanned entries, his face twisting in anguish, then tucked it away and emerged, heading deeper into the woods. Poirot shadowed, the path narrowing to a muddy trail flanked by ancient yews. Thunder rumbled distantly, an echo of the evening's tensions. Voss paused at a clearing, kneeling by a weathered stump, digging with frantic hands. Earth yielded a small tin box, rusted but intact. He pried it open, revealing papers yellowed with age, letters, perhaps, or deeds. A twig snapped under Poirot's foot, and Voss whirled, lantern swinging. "Who's there?" Poirot stepped forward, unflinching. Only Hercule Poirot, seeking clarity in the darkness. Voss clutched the box. "You followed. This is private. War mementos, nothing more." "Or evidence," Poirot countered. "The clock's discrepancy. It ran 10 minutes slow that day, altering your alibi. And this box. Let us see what echoes it holds." Voss hesitated, then relented, the storm's last drops pattering like applause. The chapter's revelations had reconciled the surface, but this nocturnal discovery heightened the enigma, drawing Poirot inexorably toward the truth's shadowed heart. Chapter 4. Shadows of Betrayal. The night enveloped Blackmore Hall in a shroud of impenetrable blackness, stars obscured by a canopy of low-hanging clouds that promised more rain, their underbellies bruised with the remnants of the storm. The wind had subsided to a mournful whisper, rustling the leaves like conspirators exchanging secrets in the dark. Hercule Poirot, his overcoat buttoned against the damp chill, moved with the stealth of a shadow himself, his patent leather shoes muffled by the sodden earth. The lantern Voss carried bobbed ahead like a will-o'-the-wisp, guiding the baronet deeper into the estate's wilder fringes, away from the manicured lawns and toward the overgrown thickets where ancient oaks stood sentinel. Poirot's breath came in measured puffs, his cane gripped not for support but as a potential ally in whatever confrontation awaited. The discovery of the tin box had ignited a spark in his grey cells, a repository of wartime correspondence perhaps, or documents that could shatter Voss's carefully constructed facade. Why bury it, and why retrieve it now, under cover of night? The questions propelled him forward, each step a deliberate advance into the heart of betrayal. The path narrowed, flanked by thorny brambles that snagged at his coat like greedy fingers. Ahead, the silhouette of a secluded chapel emerged from the gloom, a relic from the estate's medieval origins, its stone walls weathered and lichen-encrusted, the spire a jagged finger pointing accusingly at the heavens. Ivy strangled the arched doorway, and the air grew heavier with a scent of moss and decay. Voss paused at the threshold, his lantern casting erratic beams that danced across the facade like searching eyes. He glanced over his shoulder, but Poirot melted behind a gnarled trunk, his form indistinguishable from the night's tapestry. With a creak that echoed like a sigh from the grave, Voss pushed open the door and slipped inside. Poirot waited a heartbeat, then followed, easing the portal ajar just enough to peer within. The chapel's interior was a cavern of flickering candlelight, Voss had lit a few stubs on the altar, their flames guttering in draughts that seeped through cracked stained glass windows depicting faded saints. The air was stale, laced with the musty odour of forgotten prayers and mildewed hymnals. Voss knelt before the altar, not in devotion, but in furtive labour, his fingers prying at a loose flagstone. It yielded with a grating scrape, revealing a hollow beneath, a cache of yellowed envelopes bound with twine, their seals cracked and resealed. But before he could claim them, a rustle from the shadows materialized into a cloaked figure, hooded and enigmatic, emerging from behind a crumbling pew. "You're late," the figure hissed, voice muffled but resonant with urgency. "The payment, where is it? Those wartime dispatches won't stay buried forever." Voss rose, clutching the bundle, his face twisted in a grimace of defiance and fear. "You bleed me dry, you wretch. These letters, proof of my espionage dealings, yes, but ancient history. The war ended decades ago. Why dredge it now?" The cloaked intruder stepped closer, gloved hands extended. "Ancient, those codes you sold to the Kaiser, treason, Voss, names of allies betrayed, fortunes diverted. One whisper to the authorities and Blackmore crumbles. Pay up, 10,000 as agreed, or the press gets the lot." Poirot's mind raced, piecing the fragments. Voss, a wartime traitor. The confession of Drake's murder paled against this revelation. Blackmail rooted in national secrets, a motive far grander than jealousy on the moors. The baronet's hands trembled as he produced a thick envelope from his coat. "This is the last. Take it and vanish." But the blackmailer snatched it greedily, tucking it away. "Last? Hardly. Your inheritance swells with each year. Edmund's untimely end saw to that. More next month, or enough." Poirot burst from concealment, his cane raised like a rapier, the silver handle glinting in the candlelight. "Halt!" Hercule Poirot commanded. "The game, she's up." Voss whirled, shock etching his features. "Poirot, how?" The cloaked figure recoiled, but Poirot advanced, his voice a thunderclap in the confined space. "The shadows betray you both. Sir Reginald, your nocturnal errand exposes more than buried letters. And you, Monsieur le Blackmailer, reveal yourself." In the ensuing scramble, the figure lunged for the door, but Poirot's cane hooked the cloak's hem, yanking it back with surprising force. The hood fell away, unveiling not a stranger, but Julian Voss, the prodigal nephew, his face contorted in a snarl of desperation, eyes wild with the panic of the cornered. "Julian," Voss gasped, staggering against the altar. "You, my own blood?" Julian shook off the cloak, his disguise unraveling like his composure. "Blood? You've poisoned this family long enough, uncle. Those letters, I found them years ago, scavenging the chapel for relics. Wartime treason, selling secrets to fund your vices. Father suspected, that's why he rewrote the will. But you silenced him, didn't you? A spur in the saddle, a spooked horse, murder masked as mishap." Voss's denial erupted, raw and vehement. "Lies! Edmund's death was fate, not my hand. And you, extorting your own kin for inheritance scraps, despicable." The standoff thickened the air, candles sputtering as if in protest. Julian brandished a small pistol from his waistband, its barrel gleaming coldly. "Stay back, Poirot. This is family business. The money, it's for debts, yes, but also justice. He owes me, owes us all." Poirot stood unmoved, his stance a bastion of calm amid the chaos. "Justice? Non, mon jeune homme. This is vengeance cloaked in greed. Put down the weapon. Your scheme crumbles. The letters, they implicate Voss, but your fingerprints mar them now, and the anonymous accusations. Your script sent to drive him to confession, to weaken his resolve. Julian's grip faltered, the pistol wavering. How could you know? The cadence of the threats, youthful flourish in the phrasing, postmarks from London dens you frequent. And your eyes, they betray the same grudge I saw at dinner. Surrender, Julian. Reform beckons. Debts can be settled, sins absolved. Tears streaked Julian's cheeks, the weight of his actions crashing down like the chapel's sagging rafters. The pistol clattered to the stone floor, and he sank to his knees, sobs racking his frame. I never meant harm. The gambling pit swallowed me whole. When I found the letters, it seemed a way out. Force him to share the estate fairly. Father would have wanted that. Voss approached hesitantly, his anger melting into paternal sorrow. He knelt beside his nephew, a hand on his shoulder. Boy, if you'd only asked, the fortune is cursed, but we can mend this. No authorities, not yet. Promise change, and Blackmore remains ours. The poignant reconciliation unfolded in the candle's dim glow, embraces exchanged, vows of support murmured. Julian rose, unburdened, his promise of reform a fragile bridge over the familial chasm. I'll seek help, but the debts, the anger. Thank you, Poirot, for exposing me before it consumed us. But as they turned to leave, a glint on the floor caught Poirot's eye. A locket dislodged in the scuffle, its chain snapped. He scooped it up, the gold warm from Julian's pocket. Flicking it open, photographs nestled within. Not family portraits, but grainy images of a woman unknown to him. Dark-haired, elegant, her smile frozen in time, and beside her, a man in uniform, face obscured but posture eerily familiar. On the reverse, inscribed faintly, "To R.V. with eternal love, Elara, 1920. Poirot's grey cells ignited anew. Elara, a name absent from Voss's tales, and the date, post-war, linking to another era of secrets. This was no mere heirloom. The woman's gaze held accusation, hinting at a second victim unrelated to Drake or Edmund. Poison, perhaps, or a disappearance veiled in silence. Voss noticed, his expression tightening. A trinket, nothing more. Non, Poirot murmured, pocketing it. Everything connects in the web of deception. Dawn approaches, Sir Reginald. With it, the core of your confession awaits confrontation. They emerged from the chapel, the night air crisp with renewal, but Poirot's resolve hardened like frost on the grass. The blackmail scheme resolved, the rift mended, yet the locket's revelation pulsed with fresh peril, drawing him toward the final unveiling as the first hints of light pierced the eastern sky. Chapter 5. The Final Unveiling. The first tendrils of dawn infiltrated Blackmore Hall like cautious intruders, gilding the edges of heavy drapes and casting an ethereal haze over the estate's weary grandeur. The storm had exhausted itself into a drizzling murmur, leaving the world outside sodden and renewed, puddles mirroring the paling sky like scattered fragments of a shattered mirror. Hercule Poirot stood in the library, the heart of the hall, where towering shelves brimmed with volumes that whispered of bygone eras. Leather spines cracked with age, gold lettering faded but enduring. The air held the rich perfume of polished wood and lingering pipe tobacco, a sanctuary now poised for judgment. He had summoned them all with notes dispatched by the housemaid at first light. Terse invitations to convene, penned in his meticulous hand. The locket from the chapel nestled in his vest pocket, its weight a talisman of unresolved enigma. The inscribed name, Elara, echoing like a refrain in his thoughts. Voss's wartime treachery, Julian's blackmail, these were but preludes. The grey cells had orchestrated the symphony to its crescendo, each clue a note converging in harmonious revelation. The family trickled in, their faces etched with the night's toll. Voss, hollow-eyed and rumpled, his aristocratic bearing frayed at the edges. Lady Voss, her pearls askew, lips pressed into a line of guarded anticipation. Julian, subdued and shadowed. The fire of his defiance banked to embers. Mrs. Hargrove, apron smooth, but hands clasped tightly, as if anchoring herself against the coming gale. The constable, a burly local summoned by Poirot's discreet wire, loitered by the door, his uniform a stark emblem of impending consequence. Poirot positioned himself before the massive fireplace where logs crackled with subdued vigor, flames leaping like eager witnesses. He adjusted his cufflinks, silver ovals engraved with intricate knots, and cleared his throat, his voice resonating with the authority of unassailable logic. Mes amis, gather close. The hour of truth has struck. Hercule Poirot has unravelled the threads of this deadly confession, and what emerges is a tapestry woven with greed, deception, and the poison of unchecked ambition. Voss shifted uneasily in his armchair, fingers drumming a staccato rhythm on the leather. Poirot, last night's revelations were ordeal enough. Julian's folly exposed. What more can there be? Ah, Sir Reginald, Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming with the fervour of deduction. Your confession in Brussels was the overture, a masterful feint to divert suspicion. You admitted to Captain Drake's murder on the moors, a crime of passion, you claimed. But no, that was a smokescreen, obscuring a far more recent iniquity, the poisoning of your late visitor, one Elara Thorne, whose locket bears silent testimony. He produced the locket with a flourish, flicking it open to reveal the photographs, Elara's serene visage, and a uniformed man, now clearly Voss himself in younger guise. Gasps rippled through the room, Lady Voss's hand flying to her throat. Elara, the solicitor's assistant who visited last month. She collapsed during her stay. Heart failure, the doctor ruled. Poirot paced slowly, his steps measured echoes on the parquet. Précisément, madame. But heart failure induced by arsenic, the vial I discovered in the attic, its crystals matching residues in the teacup from her chamber, which I discreetly examined. Elara was no mere assistant. She was your wartime paramour, Sir Reginald, the bearer of secrets from your espionage days. Those letters in the chapel, dispatches you sold to the enemy. She possessed duplicates, unearthed from her father's archives. She came not for legal counsel, but to demand her share of the spoils. Emeralds smuggled during the war, hidden in the chapel's altar, a fortune in uncut gems valued at untold riches. Julian leaned forward, his earlier remorse eclipsed by dawning horror. Emeralds. Father mentioned Burmese ventures, partnerships gone sour. You hid them here. Voss's face drained of colour, his denial crumbling like ancient parchment. Lies. Elara was a ghost from the past, yes, but poisoning, absurd. Poirot halted, pivoting with dramatic precision. Absurd. Let us reconstruct, step by inexorable step, the anonymous letters accusing you of more murder, your own fabrication posted from Brussels to fabricate guilt, luring me here as a witness to your atonement. But the timeline betrays. The clock chimed falsely that fateful hunt day, wound by you to skew alibis. Yet Drake's death was genuine accident, your rifle's misfire, as ballistics from old reports confirm. No murder there, but a convenient myth to mask Elara's demise. Lady Voss's eyes widened, pearls clinking as she trembled. But why Elara? What threat did she pose? The ultimate one, Poirot intoned. She knew of the emeralds, your wartime plunder, stashed in the altar's secret compartment, accessed via the flagstone I observed you pry. Julian's blackmail stumbled upon the letters, but Elara demanded half the gems, threatening exposure. You laced her tea with arsenic from the vial, vermin control, you called it, watching her convulse in the guest room, her last words, a gasp of betrayal. Mrs. Hargrove whimpered, sinking into a chair. The teacup, I cleared it, never suspected. Voss surged to his feet, voice cracking with desperation. Proof! Where is your proof, you meddlesome Belgian? Poirot's smile was a razor of triumph. In the details, mon ami, the locket's inscription, to R.V., with eternal love, links you intimately. Fingerprints on the vial match yours, lifted discreetly from your brandy glass in Brussels. And the emeralds themselves, retrieved this dawn by the constable under my direction, glittering, verdant accusations from their hiding place. But the coup de grace, Elara's final letter, tucked in the locket's hidden compartment, detailing your rendezvous and demands, every clue, handkerchief monogram from her effects, attic vial, chapel cache converges here. The room fell silent save for the fire's snap and Voss's ragged breaths. He deflated, collapsing back, his admissions spilling forth like a breached dam. She would have ruined me. The emeralds, my safeguard against ruin. I slipped the powder, thinking it merciful, quick, but her eyes, accusing, even in death. The confession to you, Poirot, it was to gauge if suspicion stirred, to bury the truth under old sins. Lady Voss rose, her voice steel-tempered. Monster, Edmund suspected your treachery. That's why the will changed. You spurred his horse, didn't you? Another accident for fortune's sake. Voss hung his head. Edmund. Yes. A prick from a hidden needle. The beast maddened. Greed blinded me. Julian's face twisted in anguish. Uncle. Father. How could you? The constable stepped forward, irons clinking ominously. Sir Reginald Voss, you're under arrest for the murders of Elara Thorne and Edmund Voss and wartime treason. As Voss was led away, his shoulders bowed under the weight of exposed villainy, the family clustered in stunned unity. Lady Voss embraced Julian, her scheming facade yielding to genuine solace. We'll rebuild, nephew. Blackmore endures. Mrs. Hargrove dabbed her eyes. Justice, at last. Master Edmund can rest. Poirot observed from the periphery, his work complete. The library's warmth enveloped him as he reflected on the symmetry of justice, the way human frailty wove patterns of destruction, only for logic to untangle them. The heart deceives, he murmured to himself, but the mind illuminates. Outside, the drizzle ceased, sunlight piercing the clouds in triumphant shafts, bathing the moors in golden redemption. Poirot gathered his valise, bidding farewells with courteous bows. The train back to Brussels awaited, its rhythm a lullaby to his satisfied soul. No loose ends dangled, the case sealed with the precision of a master craftsman. Retirement beckoned once more, but in the quiet corners of his mind, he knew mysteries would summon him again. For the world brimmed with discord, and Hercule Poirot stood eternal vigil. As the carriage rattled away from Blackmore, the hall receding like a fading dream, Poirot allowed a small smile. The emeralds, confiscated for the crown, symbolized greed's folly. The family's fractures mended through raw truth, a testament to resilience. In the crisp morning air, scented with wet earth and blooming heather, peace settled over Devon, a fragile bloom nurtured by revelation's light.